Rarely does one go from art school to finding a love for engineering, but the story of James Dyson has always been extraordinary. Dyson is best known for designing the dual cyclone bagless vacuum cleaner, but little is known of his struggle with being a market disruptor. The founder has a rich history of inventions that drove him to create the product now copied by giants like Miele, Philips, and Bosch. So how did an art college graduate grow to bootstrap one of the world's most premier vacuum cleaners and niche consumer electronics brands? Welcome to the Bootstrapped Founders Spotlight, a series brought to you by the Savvy Mates blog. We're going to put the spotlight on a bootstrapped founder that grew their company the old-fashioned way, using their own financial resources and know-how to build highly respectable and profitable companies, often risking everything they have in the process. Before we begin, this video is sponsored by Gig Rally. Does your business rely on freelancers or contractors? Are you often surprised by the amount that they end up billing you? Then you need Gig Rally to help you keep track of your financial obligation when you hire these professionals. Reduce your financial stress and run a much more profitable business by using Gig Rally. Try out for free by visiting www.gigrally.com. Born in 1947, James Dyson studied in Gresham's School, an independent boarding school in Norfolk, England. It was quite a modest living for the Dyson family, especially after James lost his father to prostate cancer when he was only 9 years old. Insecurity racking his young mind, James Dyson channeled his feelings of loss and grief into long-distance running, which he still credits for his underlying determination. After finishing school, Dyson went on to study painting at the Byam Shaw School of Art and later moved to study interior design at the Royal College of Art in London. And it was here that he met Anthony Hunt, a structural engineer who encouraged Dyson to put his paintbrushes aside and find the beauty in structures and their aesthetics. Speaking to NPR on their How I Built This podcast in 2018, Dyson admitted he had no idea how to even weld at that point. Whatever he knows today, he taught himself. Once out of college, he started working for a prominent British engineer, Jeremy Fry, who was as wonderfully unconventional as James himself. After Dyson got married, he was offered a design job or two with Fry's company, Rotork Controls in Bath. Here he designed and produced the Sea Truck, a small and versatile flat-bottomed fiberglass landing craft. And this was only the beginning. 7 years later, after finding his footing in the world of innovation, he started on his own. His first invention? The bull barrow. In 1974, Dyson came up with a concept for a classic wheelbarrow that would be easier to maneuver. The idea came when Dyson was frustrated while doing up his farmhouse. The usual narrow wheels and stands that would sink into the soft soil. And so came the bull barrow, which was a molded plastic hopper mounted on a steel frame and a spherical wheel. Selling it wasn't the piece of cake he thought it would be, which really gave Dyson the push to be better at sales. The bull barrow was priced too low, and there was hardly a market for wheelbarrows, which taught Dyson the lessons he needed to prepare for his most iconic invention. Soon after came the trolley bull, which launched boats at sea, and the wheelboat, which could travel at 40 miles per hour on both land and sea. In an interview with Financial Times, when asked if you lost everything tomorrow, what would you do? Dyson's response was, find another problem to solve. And he did. Having caught the inventing bug, there was no stopping him. One day in 1978, Dyson bought what was, evidently at the time, the most powerful vacuum cleaner on the market. But rather than cleaning, the Hoover just pushed the dust around the room, and it lost its suction with every use. After tearing several bags apart, he found the problem: the pores. The old vacuum cleaners have disposable bags that collect the dirt, and its pores would get blocked with the dirt, constricting airflow and reducing suction. It was an obvious design flaw, but it made vacuum cleaner manufacturing companies a lot of money since people would keep buying new bags. At the time, these consumables were worth around £500 million a year. The idea for a new vacuum cleaner came to him when Dyson saw an industrial sawmill and noticed how sawdust was being removed by large industrial cyclones. Sure enough, his instinct for design and engineering kicked in. Could that model work on a smaller scale? Only one way to find out. James rushed home to create a prototype with cardboard and scotch tape and strapped it to his Hoover vacuum. It didn't look great, but it worked, and that was all he needed. Dyson devoted the next 5 years of his life to perfecting his design, supported only by his wife's salary as an art teacher, a sizable loan from the bank, and help from his former employer Jeremy Fry. This money was essentially his salary, and it went towards caring for the children and making ends meet. And inventing comes with its own set of problems. Will people want it? Will the product work? Can you really make it? How would you even do that? In his words, it's fragile. Around 1984, after 5,127 prototypes, James finally had a winner. This vacuum cleaner had no bag and relied on centrifugal force to separate dirt from air. Now it was time for the next step. Dyson lugged his incredible invention door to door, pitching to giants like Electrolux and Black & Decker, and they couldn't have been less interested, as it would hurt their very profitable disposable vacuum bag business. Moreover, Dyson was pricing his product 3 times what other vacuum cleaners were retailing for. At that point, Dyson was heavily in debt, and suffice to say, he needed a win. That win came in the form of a phone call from Apex, a small Japanese company that invited him to sign a deal. In 1986, they produced the G-Force, which was quite different from the original design, but still functional. It sold for around $2,500, which today comes to around $6,000. Considering that, it was quite a success. So much so that it won the 1991 International Design Fair Prize in Japan. But it was short-lived. The money saved Dyson from bankruptcy, but he aimed to sell more units at a reasonable price, not a few units at an incredibly high price. In the long run, that business model simply wouldn't be viable. He wanted to take matters into his own hands. Around this time, Dyson was also dealing with a lawsuit. An American company managed to copy his design. Though he won that case, it dragged on for 5 years. At this point, having paid off his debt to Jeremy Fry, he still needed funding to build his own vacuum cleaners. One would think his incredible track record with building a successful prototype and getting a licensee in Japan would make this process a snap. Unfortunately, the venture capital firms he approached wanted nothing to do with him. He finally got funding through another bank loan of £600,000, which amounts to over $800,000. With that, he was able to utilize half a factory space to build his own vacuum cleaners. The other half was a plastics factory, which he employed to create components. Dyson's company essentially began with a couple of people for assembly, 4 engineers and 1 salesperson. At this point, they were selling each unit for £199 or $268, relatively reasonable given the previous tag of $6,000. Shortly after, Dyson got into the advertising game, using the money from a successful order of 10,000 vacuum cleaners to make his very first advertisement. Their key message? Say goodbye to the bag. It should come as no surprise that just 2 years later, by 1995, Dyson's product became the UK's #1 vacuum cleaner. It outsold every company that rejected his idea. Now that his company was generating an annual revenue of over $100 million a year, it was time to make the journey across the Atlantic to the land of opportunity, the United States. The combination of high retail prices and Dyson's regular TV appearances skyrocketed sales. And it definitely helped that the American electronics giant Best Buy backed his product after a junior buyer fell in love with the product. All of this fueled the adoption rate and made the vacuum cleaner a smash hit. In less than a year, the Dyson Dual Cyclone had captured an astonishing 20% of the US vacuum cleaner market. Following this success, it only made sense to go on. Not long after came the Dyson DC-01 vacuum cleaner. In just a few years, DC-01 made up 40% of the vacuum cleaner market in America. With two huge successes in his back pocket, James Dyson had enough drive and funding to launch newer and better products. He put a team together to research the best ways to wash clothes and landed on a technology that would mimic washing clothes by hand in the confines of a machine. To make that happen, Dyson took a page from his own book and decided on two contra-rotating drums that would make the clothes rub against each other and get them clean. The problem? Well, it's a tall order. To make two drums rotate independently of each other, you need two motors, two drive belts, and two drums. You would essentially be buying two washing machines, and that doesn't come cheap. Which brings us to the second problem: cost. And there was no way to sell a washing machine like that at a competitive price. It was doomed to fail. But that didn't stop James Dyson, who decided to expand his range of offerings anyway. His next invention would be the air blade, a hand dryer that uses a thin sheet of moving air to remove water instead of using heat. Even today, you see this invention in restaurants, cinemas, and the wider hospitality industry. In addition, Dyson also offers other household products, such as heaters, bladeless fans, lights, and hairdryers. It's no question that Dyson has made massive contributions to innovation and technology for households and the hospitality industry. By early 2005, James Dyson had cemented himself in British history as one of the greatest innovators, and for his service to engineering and entrepreneurship, he was knighted by Prince Charles in 2006. Today, Dyson employs 14,000 people, all geared towards solving the problems most other companies have ignored. It's a large operation with the heart of a startup, mainly hiring fresh graduates with little to no work experience. This unique approach is clearly working since they turned a revenue of $7.6 billion in 2020, despite the global pandemic. And throughout, Dyson has remained the chief engineer and sole owner of the company. With a net worth of $9.5 billion, Dyson could well retire comfortably. But the inventor prefers to stay in the workshop, brainstorming and building. Aside from his work in Dyson, he is also enabling future inventors through the James Dyson Foundation. Set up in the UK, US, and Japan, the foundation supports engineering education in schools and universities and encourages medical and scientific research in association with local charities. As James Dyson has proved, relying on company profits to finance the growth and scaling can be very rewarding. However, to have any profits as a business owner, you need to keep strict control over your most sizable expenditures. And that is where our sponsor, Gig Rally, a product brought to us by, yes, another bootstrapped company, might be able to help you. Does your business rely on freelancers or contractors? Are you often surprised by the amount that they end up billing you? Then you need Gig Rally to help you keep track of your financial obligation when you hire these professionals. Reduce your financial stress and run a much more profitable business by using Gig Rally. Get your free trial by visiting www.gigrally.com. We hope this video inspired you. If it did, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more videos just like this. If you want to be notified about new videos, click that bell icon and set the notifications to all. And make sure to also visit our blog over at www.savvymates.com to watch many more exciting episodes of the Bootstrapped Founders Spotlight, and register for free to be the first to watch new episodes weeks before we release them here on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.